Hello, everybody. How you doing? This is Kyle here, and today I wanted to talk about testing boundaries in order to keep a person sharp. So, what do I mean by this? Um, so, a lot of time in day-to-day life, we respect boundaries and we see natural boundaries out there. Like, I'm not supposed to go over here. I'm not supposed to do this. Not supposed to talk to this person. I do this at this point, I do this at this other point, and you kind of end up living a life where you're like on a track, kind of. Like, you know, uh, when you're in the grocery store, you go in the grocery store, and what do? You walk to your groceries, pick them up, put them in a basket, walk to the cashier, say hello, scan your items, and then you leave, right? Um, but I've started to realize that uh, testing boundaries kind of keeps people sharp and awake, kind of keeps people like on the ball because a lot of times I think when people don't have their boundaries tested, they kind of relax and sort of go into like a sleepy kind of like living dream, like they're just daydreaming kind of thing. But like if you test a boundary, like you like come up to somebody and talk to them, or like you know you like walk close to them or whatever, like you know, but you just test a boundary with somebody, like you can kind of see how they react, and yeah, it really like keeps you sharp. Like for me, I've really had this kind of realization the last little while that like I'm not a fan of people coddling me or like really overly like uh, wanting to maintain my boundaries. Like I like people kind of like poking at me a little bit because it wakes me up and like it gets me to respond to them. It gets me to like kind of fight back in a way. Like you know, when people test you, you grow. You grow through a test, right? Like if you never get tested, then you're never gonna grow. Like you're never gonna um, get out of your comfort zone. So I think that like it's important to get tested. Like it's important to get like somebody like really testing you. Like because if you don't, then um, yeah, you're gonna yeah, you can relax, and maybe a lot of people want to relax, but um, it kind of is almost like you're asleep. You're not really here. You're not really living, right? So, like when somebody like tests you, like pokes at you, it gives you a chance to respond. And I've been thinking lately about how in stories, like you need conflict. Like a story without conflict is pointless. There's nothing there. Nothing happens, right? Like if you think of like the main stories of like you know fiction, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Um, there has to be a bad guy. There has to be some kind of test. Like imagine Harry Potter without Voldemort. You know, imagine Harry Potter without you know the bad guy who's trying to like take over the wizard world, right? You know, imagine Lord of the Rings without Sauron. Uh, it wouldn't. Nothing would happen. Frodo would just stay in the Shire, and he would just, be smoking his pipe. You know, just be smoking his pipe in his like hobbit hole, right? So if he never got, if there was never that threat of, something evil taking over the world, then, no adventure would be possible. And that's the whole reason that we watch The Lord of the Rings, is because we want that adventure. We want that's what we want. You know, you don't go to the movie, you know, wanting to see a documentary on the Shire. You know, you wouldn't go to The Lord of the Rings if it was like just sitting there, you know, watching hobbits, you know, in the garden. Like, that's not what you want. What you want is the sword fighting and the action and the monsters and the Balrog and, you know, Gandalf with the magic and stuff. Like, you want the conflict and the adventure. And you know, it's also like in video games, you have to have some kind of evil thing trying to take over the world. I think it's just a natural part of stories is to have, you know, some kind of villain, some kind of evil thing, some kind of like, yeah, negative aspect, because if you don't have that, then you don't have a story, you don't have any conflict. You know, Shakespeare with Hamlet, you know, I never read Hamlet, but, you know, with the guy that wants to murder the king or whatever, I can't remember, I never really read that one, but, you know, any story needs conflict or else nothing happens, and it's just boring, you know, there's nothing there. So yeah, so like the hero of the story, say in like video games like The Legend of Zelda, I'm a huge fan of. Like The Legend of Zelda, like Link is this elf boy. He's just, you know, stuck in his little forest home, right? And it's only when some kind of conflict happens, something bad happens, that he's called to adventure, to step up. It's the hero's journey. And yeah, Final Fantasy as well, like, you know, the bad guys, Chaos, you know, in the first one it's like the boss is Chaos, or like Final Fantasy 7 it's like Sephiroth, you know, like in any action movie like Die Hard, like there's the terrorists, you know, usually without a bad guy, there's no story, like nothing's happening. So I suppose there's a little bit of a necessity to having a bad guy, because the bad guy has to be overcome. You know, you have to. You're called to adventure. You're called to respond to this bad individual, this, you know, bad character, right? It forces people to step up, and so yeah, maybe it's not necessarily polite or whatever, I don't know, but like maybe people need to be tested a little bit, need to be pushed a little bit, because if they're not, then nothing's happening. Like if you don't push a boundary, then the person's just gonna kind of be there in their mind, in their thoughts, I don't know. So I guess a recommendation I have is to push boundaries a little bit. And yeah, maybe it's not like, I don't know, politically correct, maybe it's not like polite, maybe it's not, you know, what a good upstanding citizen does. I don't know, I'm not saying do like criminal shit or anything like that, but like, you know, just push things a little bit. You know, at least have that little aspect to yourself where you're just testing just a little bit, just to see, because if a person like can't stand up to a test, then they become a very weak, wishy-washy individual. Like, you need somebody to I think, give you the respect to test you. You know, like, it's this difference between like respect and love. It's like, yeah, if you love something, you nurture it, and you like kind of like mother it, like, you know, you're like treating it like a baby, you're like coddling it and stuff like that. But a wiser long-term way of seeing things is like that, like, if you only coddle something, it has no chance to develop that that striving, that will to push forward in the world. You end up with a very weak thing, you know, because it's never been tested, like, and it's only been coddled. And we can imagine, like, you know, like going back to like Lord of the Rings and stuff, like Frodo, you know, what if he never went on that adventure? Would he have? He certainly experienced, you know, new things going on that adventure. You know, it tested his skills, it tested his courage, you know. So, you know, if Harry Potter had never been, you know, tested, would he have grown? You know, like, can you ever grow without being tested? And so, if you don't test somebody, how can they grow? You know, that's a good question. You know, I find it interesting that you have to test people for, like, as a form of respect, like, because it gets them up and awake and sort of interact with the world. And something I've noticed as well with girls as well is, like, they don't want a guy who's never going to test them, because I think they understand that, you know, that they want a guy who's not going to, like, back down, you know, who's not going to, like, who's incapable of being tested himself, you know, and won't, you know, rise to a challenge. Like, they want a guy who's going to, like, rise to a challenge and, like, actually, like, you know, deal with the situation and, like, yeah, be there and, like, actually face that situation. Like, they want a guy that's going to do that and not a guy that's just going to, like, back down and do nothing, you know. So, you know, and it's this kind of thing that I've talked about in other videos of, like, relaxation versus, like, living a more exciting life. It's like, you realize that when you're relaxed and doing nothing, that, like, nothing's happening. And when nothing's happening, you know, it's like you don't exist. And so, if you really want to, like, be here, like, really, like, actually, like, live an exciting life, you gotta rise to a challenge. You have to actually, like take on the world a little bit, and you need to face that conflict of like this is the world, like, and this is, like, and yeah, you know what, I am gonna fight back to it, you know, I am actually gonna, like, fight back and try to, like, you know, if you're gonna test me, I'll test you, you know, to everything, to like the world, you know. So yeah, so how can you test people? Well, I think a lot of people are afraid of being bullies. Um, they're afraid of bullying someone, like you know, yeah, they're afraid of like really offending somebody. But I think the way to do it is it's almost like a mentor type situation where it's like, I'm gonna test you and I'm gonna see how you react, and if you take it very personally, I'm going to try to help you. I'm going to try and bring you up and be like, no, here's how you deal with this. Because that's something that I've been realizing with rejection. It's like, you really have to own anything about you that anybody could possibly make fun of or anything like that. Like, you know, your height or your race or your sex or your class, your nationality, your ethnicity, whatever. Like, whatever somebody tests you on, like, you have to be able to be like, yeah. Like, for me, it's like, I'm a white male, so it's like, you know, if someone's like, you're white, it's like, yes, I am. Yeah, I'm aware of that. And it's like, yeah, you get tested on it and you just keep going. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm a white male. Okay, alright. Go on. And I guess it's the same, like, if you're black, like, you know, you have to own it. Like, you have to actually, like, own that you are black. Like if somebody tests you on it, it's like, oh, you're black, so blah, 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 blah. You know, you're black, so this is what you gotta do. This is how you have to be. You know, you can't listen to white music because you're black or whatever, right? But then you just own it, and you're like, yeah, I'm black. Okay. Or it's like if you're short, like, or you're bald or whatever, like, you know, people be like, yeah, you're short, so, you know, don't even talk to me. Maybe like a girl says that to a guy, like, you're so short. It's like, they don't always do it just to like reject you outright, but it is almost like a test of like, are you capable of like being okay with who you are, like in your entirety of what you are? Because it's like, if you're short, you like, there's no way around that. Like, there's no, you know, it's not like you can magically will yourself to be taller. Like, I'd probably make myself a little bit taller if I could, but like, you just have to accept it and kind of be like, you have to own it. You have to be like, yeah. And it's, you know, in a sense, it's almost like you're actively like looking for somebody to test you, because you know that somebody testing you is going to make you stronger. So it's almost like you go out looking for rejection. Like, you go out, if you're short, like, go out looking for somebody to call you short. Like, look for it. Like, actively try to be like, to get somebody to be like, hey, you're short, you know. Or if you're white or Indian or Asian or whatever, and it's like, go out getting somebody. Like, you know, at the bar the other day, this girl was like, I said something to her and she's like, oh, that's real easy as a white male. And it's like, okay. Like, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Who cares? Like, it's funny. It's, but when you own it, it's like, it really doesn't matter what anybody says. And it's like, you get this kind of like ability to deal with any challenge and like rise to the challenge and be like, yeah, I'm gonna keep on keeping on. It really doesn't matter what you say to me or do to me. Like, I'm gonna keep going. and it's the will to succeed, and it's the will to thrive and to grow and to never stop that will carry you forward, and that people respect, and gives life some value, gives life some zest and energy. So okay, so I guess I should give like concrete examples, like how do you test. One way is like with like friends and family is like physical, like you can physically like touch them, be like, I'm touching your boundary, you know, or like play little games with them, like throw stuff at them, stuff like that, which sounds, it's like bullying in a way, but it's like kind of like getting them to like wake up and I guess try to just sort of like test them on something, see how they respond. Don't push it and like beat someone when they're down, but like test them on something, because yeah, like I said, like when you test somebody, a lot of the time they'll rise to the occasion, and you want to see that. You want to see other people succeed, and that's something I've noticed. Like once I've started really focusing on self-improvement, is it's like I don't just want myself to succeed. I want everybody to succeed. I want people to do better, because it reminds me, like, hey, you got to do better too. Like when you start seeing people like out there doing shit, like it reminds you of like, yeah, okay, I gotta step up as well, and it's pretty cool actually. So, but yeah, you can test people like with like little bits of like pushing them, of like a little bit of eye contact, a little bit of like just kind of testing their boundaries. Because often you'll come to like a respectful agreement and stuff, like if you test somebody there, they'll push back, and then you'll be like, okay, cool, all right, so I've seen where your boundary is. But if you just push, sometimes people, yeah, I think because they've got such low self-esteem, they'll let you keep pushing because they don't know how to fight back. And then that's when you take that like mentor sort of attitude of like, I'm gonna push you and I'm gonna see how you react, and then if you keep backing down, I'm gonna be like, no, and I'm gonna try and build you up. So it's that balance of like push and building the other person up, because it gives you a sense of like this leadership quality of like, I want to see you succeed, and taking that mentor route is really like, that's also very fulfilling, It gives you a sense of power as well, to know that, they're going to look up to you because you're giving them something, and basically for free, of like, this is my gift that I'm passing on to you. So yeah, so test some boundaries, test a boundary or two, and it's part of that going out of your comfort zone, but keep doing it, and every day becomes a bit more interesting. I've started to think of this like it's like in a video game when you get like stuck at a plateau, and then you finally break into like a new area, and it's like, oh wow, okay, there's more to this game. Okay, that's pretty cool. Like, interesting. All right. And I remember that feeling as a kid. I got that as a kid a lot. Like, and now as an adult, I kind of feel that too. Of like, wow, I've pushed into a new area, and now I have to gain new skills and new power in this area. So it's an interesting thing. So yeah, that was about pushing boundaries, and hope you all have a great day, and leave a comment, subscribe if you're watching, which not many people are right now, but hey, maybe in the future. So bye bye.